When I was younger, I was very fond of that phrase that is attributed, I think, correctly to Mae West when she said, "Too much of a good thing is wonderful." I am now older and have appreciated that too much of a good thing isn't always wonderful, and that can also be the hour that we try to spend doing so much here. And so though I have labored for some hours this week to prepare this sermon, I fear it will not be getting as much attention from you as it got from me. And that's all right, because that's part of what I'm talking about today, is that sometimes the gift we intend to give is not the one we end up giving. And the gift we look forward to receiving is not the one that serves us best. All this year, my colleagues Matthew and Patrick and I will be exercising the discipline of looking at the world's Abrahamic scriptures in an orderly way as they themselves do it. And if you can go online, you can see the work we're doing is called Torah, Gospel, Quran. And so I'm using those texts to ponder as I put together these messages. And now I'm going to try to boil it down very, very, very small. In the Jewish reading this weekend, in the next 2 or 3, Moses is coming to the conclusion of his ministry, so he's giving off lots of advice. Have you ever gone home as an adult and found your parents wanting to tell you things, and you figured out eventually they wanted to make sure you got what they had to offer before they could no longer offer it? But it can be tedious. Well, the whole book of Deuteronomy is Moses saying, well, before I go, I want to tell you the following things. It's a long book. It was very hard for them to sit through it all, and they didn't sit through it at all. They stood through it. And so if you had to stand up while I read the whole book of Deuteronomy, you might be saying, how long is this already? But I want to start at the other end of Moses' ministry, where you can find a text not in the Bible, but in the Quran. Because in one of the surahs there, it talks about how Moses began his ministry, because one of the things we forget is that Islam claims Moses too, and not just the Moses they find in the Jewish scriptures, but as Muhammad experienced the revelation himself. And I want to talk about the moment Moses got into trouble, not with the Egyptians, but with himself. Because in the surah, it's usually number 28, called Al-Qasas, it says, "And Moses, when he was traveling with his family, perceived from the direction of the mountain a fire. And he said to his family, 'Stay here. Perhaps I will bring you some information or some burning wood from that fire to warm yourselves.'" Now in the Bible version, we don't hear anything about Moses talking about going to get fire to warm his family. But it makes great sense, doesn't it? That he saw something his family needed, warmth and light, and went out and said, "Oh, there's a fire." Do you know how hard it is to start a fire in the desert? Think of how many trees there are to begin with. You get a sense that it's a rarity and it's something to be exploited. And so Moses, in both versions, climbs up onto this mountain. And of course, we know what happens after that. He comes back very different than he started. Not the person he planned to be, nor with the message he planned to receive. I want to talk about this because we all have needs. Food, clothing, shelter. One of the reasons we give stuff here on Sundays. We all have desires, but I want to talk about the things we need, because by definition, these are things we don't have. We have to go and get. And here's Moses going to get something he and his family needs: light and warmth.